Ready for brand stories? Get inspired and learn from thought leaders, CEOs, business owners, managers, entrepreneurs, and experts who tell their brand stories and share their first-hand insights. Welcome to Brand Talk. I'm your host, Brigitte. I support entrepreneurs and organizations to become future market leaders by transforming their ambitions and passion into an online brand that radiates beauty, brilliance, and authenticity, attracting the clients and recognition they deserve. Let's get started and dive with me into the world of brands. My guest today is Sri Mahabir. Despite her camera shyness, Sri Mahabir was determined to share her story and the stories of other entrepreneurs. Sri's passion is to help medical practices and law professionals build visibility to their practices by using video, live streaming, and podcasts to bring in leads to their business and awareness of their practice. Sri is a remote producer who offers a done-for-you service that takes your live streaming idea from concept to execution, designing the flyers and background, producing and turning it into a podcast. In April 2020, Sri created the IG live series Journey of an Entrepreneur and guest hosts with Russ Hedge and Dee Scott on Wednesday mornings called The Experience Backstage. I warmly welcome Sri Mahabir. Welcome to Brand Talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm also happy to have you today to share your wisdom on video, live streaming, and Instagram streaming. So, before we go deep into that specific area of marketing and branding, what is your story? Because often it is the pain that becomes our purpose, which makes our story more relatable. And we usually follow that with passion. So, what is your story to all of that?
So, I have always wanted to start a business. I just wasn't sure. And then in 2018, when my ex husband, the father to my daughter, he passed away, he didn't leave a legacy. His family no longer really wanted a relationship with her. And I said, this is just not how I envisioned for my daughter. So in 2019, I started my business and it was a virtual assistant business, but it was placed on my heart. Like, hear the journeys of these entrepreneurs. And that's when, I was thinking, like, how do I do this? In 2020, we hit the pandemic. I'm like, how do I build visibility to my business? And I see Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty,
Yeah.
Gary Vee going live. And I said, that's what I want to do. And then on Instagram, I saw my friend go live, and that was it. And I started interviewing entrepreneurs. I wanted to give a spotlight, I wanted to hear their journey. And along the way, I was helping many of them get confident to be on camera because in 2020, not a lot of us were doing video, going live. So when I hit my 100th live, that's when I was working with a coach who asked me, well, what do you have a passion for if it's not your virtual assistant? I started talking about the show. And that's when I started my second business of helping entrepreneurs to get confident to be on camera. 6 months later, I was laid off from my job and I went full time as an entrepreneur in 2022. It evolved into a done for you agency where my team and I, not only do we produce live streaming shows and podcasts, we also add the element of social media management just because everybody complains they don't have a topic, they want to get leads, they want to build business. But if you're not drawing people to your podcast, to your live streaming show, well, you've got to use social media. You got to draw that audience to be able to do that. And while I was doing this, I started to realize that many of us are so shy to share our story. Even though I'm starting to focus more on medical practices and law firms, it doesn't matter what industry. We feel like our story it doesn't mean something. Even I didn't feel that way. And I was like, no, we're going to change that. Even in these practices where they feel like, I don't know if this is going to work. but that's what connects us. So going back to when you said about pain, the pain of losing someone is hard, but the pain of being not found in your business, people not finding you, people not hiring you is more painful than losing. I'm not going to say that losing a loved one is as much. It just is. It's just so, if you're trying to cover the bills, trying to pay for something for your child, that's pain. That lives with you.
Mm.
So why not change that and help others be able to say, you know what, this is who I am. And sometimes we figure out through that, maybe this isn't who I want to be working with. I align more with these type of folks. So
Yeah.
that's how my journey has helped and evolved over time.
That's beautiful. I love this story. And now you have helped over 200 entrepreneurs share their stories on camera. And we know it's important to know our ideal customer, profiling them, understanding their story, their language, and everything, and also where we are coming from, because when they can relate to our pain, because it's also their pain, we somehow connect with them also on this visceral level. They think, oh my God, she can read my mind. So, from your learnings, from your experience, what is important when we are creating content for these diverse customer groups? Because we really connect with them on this emotional, on this visceral level. So, how do you do that when going on camera, when we are visible and when we try to make a difference for them? How do we do that from your
This is a great
perspective
question.
as a video
Yeah, this is
producer?
a really, really, really good question. It's understanding who are you talking to, right? Like, are we talking to, for example, if you're a real estate agent, who are you selling this house to? Who is the buyer for this house? Who are you speaking to? What are they looking for? What are they looking to gain? Do they have children? Do they not have children? Are there tax benefits? Are there any incentives? Because if you understand who you're speaking to, it's like it goes back even to when you post content. You have to understand that one person. So when you're creating your video, or you're posting your content, you're only talking to one person. From my own mistake, I would try to talk to everybody. I would say, this is for all entrepreneurs. But when I would do that, I was actually speaking to no one. And that's when I realized, like, you can't, if I'm going to go into this business, I have to understand who I'm talking to. And when I go back to advice that I give to anybody, identify with one person and stick to them for a while, and then you figure out, okay, maybe I don't wanna work with this one person. I wanna work with this other person, because you'll find, and I've learned, and probably you've also can share this experience, everybody has pain points. Everybody wants to make money, and everybody wants to be able to give a life, not just to themselves, but their family. There are little nuances in between, but the overall is all the same.
Yeah. So you're talking about appealing to a specific niche, an
Yes.
audience that is, for example, in your case, you're helping in enhancing visibility for law and medical professionals. Am I right? And then once you have mastered that and honed in that specific audience group, then you can broaden your scope into other industries or categories or audience groups. Is that right?
Well, I would take you one step further. I
Hmm.
would say, okay, if it's the medical professional, what is it that medical professional is struggling with? And I try to find that with that one quality within the law firms, because there's something similar. Like I said, they all want to have, wealth, family, or relationships, and they finance. So you have to figure out, what's that one thing. Maybe it's, I don't like sharing my story with others because no one cares. But on the other end of it, there is somebody who is dying to become a doctor, who is dying to become a lawyer. And once they hear that story, that's it. They
Mm.
are hooked. They want to, continue listening to this person, maybe even do business with them. So that's how I would say, like, when you identify the one person, but identify that one pain point that you're speaking to. Make it super easy for you and make it super easy for your audience. And you'll start to recognize, oh, maybe I am speaking to the right people. I'm hitting that pain chord. And it's funny enough, many of us feel the same way, even though, hey, this person only works with law firms and medical professionals. But they're talking to me because they understand what I'm going through. Let me just keep following them. Even though I know I won't work with them, they still give me the value that I need.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what are the unique challenges these professionals face? Their law firms and medical professionals.
The common one I get is they don't see value yet in social media. They know they need to be on social media, but they haven't seen the value. They want to know the return on investments. They want to know the key performing indicators. They want to know how this social media, podcast, live streaming is going to turn into dollars. And sometimes we have to be careful because if you really understand marketing, you understand marketing is not a there's no, like, real numbers, but there are real stats talking about you can get visibility. You can get solid leads. You can drive your sales. But will it be the same for every business? No. But there are hard facts. Anybody who's listening who posts online, who draws and gets leads, gets business, understands it's a long-term play.
Mhm.
That 45% of businesses find they get their sales from online. So obviously this works, but can we put hard facts? We can state what our clients have done over time, but we can't give like hard, like, hey, I can increase by 30%. Maybe I did it for 9 out of 10 people, but then comes, well, why wouldn't it work for your business? Do you have a good offer? Are you speaking to the right people? Have you sold this same package to multiple people? If you haven't answered yes to any of these questions, or maybe one or two, at least if you answer yes to one or two, you have more of a chance. But if you haven't sold it, it's not gonna work. And I can see your face, you're like, "Yeah, that's true."
Yeah. So, what are the key elements? Because when we are on video, there is a purpose behind, and we have a certain intention, a certain goal to achieve. So, what key elements make a compelling and effective brand story? When we tell our story through video, what are the elements I have to really be particular and focus on and be intentional, of course?
You definitely wanna keep the messaging to one. You don't wanna go everywhere. So if you're talking about, "Here are 3 tips to introduce yourself," then stick to that introduction. Don't go off on a tangent. What do people look for? If you're gonna talk about introducing yourself, what do people really want to do in a networking event? They want to know who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. So keep it simple. And then the other element is engagement. How do you keep somebody engaged on a video? Well, the one thing you have to keep in mind is the first 3 to 5 seconds is all you have to captivate that person and for them to decide if they should watch your video or not. So you want to give them just a little bit, like a little bit of a promise, but at the same time, you don't want to underdeliver. So you
Mhm.
want to say what are you going to share and why should they stay? And I found that with law firms and medical practices that many times we're looking at TikTok, we're looking at Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and even on LinkedIn, we're finding that there's a sweet spot of how long that video should be. But if you're going to turn a video into an ad, for example, you want to on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you want to leave that ad up to maybe like 30 to 45 seconds because people get bored. So that's what you got to think about when you do your videos. At first, you're trying to get their attention. There are certain videos that should be short to the point. While if you are training, like saying, This is how you start a podcast. And this is why you would want to stay until the end because the bonus tip is going to help you the most. And then you go into one, two, three, and then the fourth one is like that juicy bonus if they stay to the end because that's their gift. So if
Mhm.
you still have questions, definitely come and find me, but just keep the element. It has to be, think about 3 to 5 seconds. How can I hook them? What promise am I delivering? Then you want them to stay to the end, which is what words, what call to action can you give? Because they have to give you a weight and show you that they stayed, and then try to give them something extra at the end.
Mm. So now we have listeners and they haven't done live streaming yet, but after this, after this episode, they're thinking, actually, I could do. So they are considering now incorporating live streaming into their brand strategy, but they're still hesitant because they're unsure of where to start. So, what would be the first three steps to take when I want to incorporate that?
First is understanding why do you want the show? Because not every show is going to take off. So if you understand that, then you understand, okay, the reason why I want to have this live streaming show is A, to find for people to start building a connection with me, build community. Eventually the leads will come. Don't focus on, oh, I got to get all of these, I have to get a sponsor. People are getting smarter with their money. So you've got to understand first, it's going to be a little bit free before it's going to get paid. So first, you got to figure out your goal,
Mhm.
understand that you're not going to get paid right away. And then the third thing is, you know what? You could go live on for free on Instagram and Facebook and take those recordings and turn them into podcasts. Now, if you want to start a podcast, you can use like Soundcast. There's also Spotify Spotify for podcasters. There's several different platforms where you can record for free and then upload it. But your first thing that you need to do after you figured out all these, before you start that podcast, post. Post content. Find out what are the topics people want to listen to, and then turn those topics into a longer form podcast. So you've got to think about first, okay, why do I want to have the podcast? What are the, at first, and understand you're not going to make money. And then third, figure out what platform you want to do it on. Then the second, like it's a two part. So the second part also is just as important. Post content. Figure out the topics people want to hear from you. Because the moment that you post that you have a podcast and that you are having these podcast episodes coming out on topics that you've talked about in your posts, they're going to want to jump into your podcast and listen to the full explanation. You can have a guest, you can have by yourself, but I have experienced that people like to hear your experience and your understanding of life and the way you view things, but they also like learning from other guests.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nice blend of the both, having guests on the show. And I think it's also nice to hear stories from others, but then also tell your own story. So I think a combination of the two is always something good, or even a replay of a masterclass where you're teaching something. So I bring all of that into my show. And thank you for the first three tips. I think that is already a great help to overcome this resistance of starting that. When it comes to editing, because there is different views on that. You can say, yeah, I want to rather have a high quality editing, or I just want to push it out there without having edited anything out. What is your take on high quality editing of video content?
So, when it comes to video content, you have to understand your editing is your brand. So, the way that you do your transitions, the way you have your words pop up, the captions pop up in your video, the colors you use it's all a brand. We think that video is just, hey, you slap on some captions and some sound effects. No, this is a brand because every time that somebody sees your video, they expect a certain thing. For example, when you go to TikTok, if you notice the accounts that have maybe 100,000, even up to millions, you'll notice that their videos have a certain start to them. And we know because that was them. Let's go back to when I explained you have the first 7 seconds, the first few seconds, you have set the tone of what's going to happen in that video. So that's a brand because you keep doing that enough times, people are going to expect that. There is a TikToker who actually goes around and gives free haircuts to people. Some of you might know who that person is, but
Yeah.
what you expect is you see him walking around, he asks people, "Would you like a haircut? Would you like a haircut?" Then he starts asking the person about their life, giving them advice, and many times when you hear the stories, these are people who are coming up from a really rough time in their life. They want to set an example to their child if the child is there. It's it makes you feel like, "Okay, I want to give to this person." It's the same thing with another creator who he's an Asian gentleman, and he does these crazy the way he records you and he walks up to the person, but when you see the final version, like the edited version, you're like, "Whoa." But there's always a pattern to all the videos if you look at it. So going back to understanding, video editing is just a brand. So if you were to come to see my videos, you will see I have a certain transition. I have a certain way that I talk. There's a way that I even have the captions float up. It's all because I understand when people come to see my videos, this is an expectation. I built that expectation. And when I edit for my clients, it's the same thing. We bring a brand to them. So when people notice their videos, they say, "Oh my God, I really like it.
Mm.
I really loved how you talked about this." Also, something else to consider is as you get comfortable editing or you hire an editor, you want to also have the right stories, not stories, but more of the stock video, stock pictures to
Mm.
go with your story. So if you're talking about a dog running after a ball, but you have a child running after a ball, that doesn't go. So you want to make sure that you keep in mind that when you speak, you want to have the right representation of the picture or video.
Absolutely. I so much agree with you. It's to have the right look and feel that goes with your brand, how you express your brand on video. It's of utmost importance. It's also about the consistency that you show up every week, every other week, or whatever the cadence is, the podcast is being dropped, right? What do you think about podcasting, audio podcasting on YouTube? Because that becomes very, very trendy at the moment, even though it's just audio and not video. What's your take on that?
So my take on anything podcast live streaming, get yourself on it.
Mm.
I know that it's like being on every other platform, but you have to understand YouTube is in competition to, I would say, actually, TikTok is in competition with YouTube. But when you Google yourself, if you put your actual recording or your live streaming show on Google, you know that the keywords are going to come up and you're going to be found. So right now on YouTube, it's free. So why not put it there? It's just another platform. You can put it there. But I personally believe, because I am the type of person, it's all about building visibility, building community, and being bound. So if they can't find you, then they won't listen to you and you
Mhm.
want to be found. So personally, I would say put yourself on YouTube. You'll hear different responses from all over, but we're seeing that if you look at the evolution of YouTube, it started with video. We now have live streaming. They're doing shorts and now they have podcasts. So they're trying to be a one stop solution. And I say take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your take on that. When it comes to getting confident on camera, so for me, for example, I started my podcast just with audio because I really had a problem with showing myself on camera. And then my next step was LinkedIn Lives and then also having the video going along with it. And now I'm pretty much okay with it, because whatever happens, it happens and it's part of your brain, right? But there's also this hesitation when it comes to building confidence or being confident on camera. What action steps, tips, or exercises that you can suggest that help overcome this shyness so that we can be really authentic on camera and have this compelling presence so that we really own it?
This is a great I love answering this question because this is the number one thing that when I was doing one-on-one coaching and group coaching is the first thing is, why do you not like looking at yourself on camera?
Mhm.
It probably goes back to something that happened in your childhood, or maybe there is a story that you are carrying because we want to confirm this truth that we believe. Maybe it's because you have gained weight over time. Hey, I can go back to videos 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, and I looked so much skinnier, but that's life. Nothing's changed. I'm still the same person. So it's understanding what is it that you don't like about yourself, understanding that story. Dive really deep and understand because it will show up in everything that you do when you start going live, when you start doing that podcast, when you start recording that video, because it's going to hit you so hard. And then you're going to believe this truth when it's not even true. I want to ask you, your best friend in the whole wide world or your spouse, they see you day in, day out. They have seen you when you woke up and like your hair is everywhere. You have eye boogers, and yet they tell you how beautiful, how handsome you are, how wonderful you are. So imagine that. Like you have somebody who's seen you at your worst and you show up on camera, which I can imagine many of us will at least comb our hair, maybe do some makeup. We wear clothes that make us feel good. So keep focusing on that. Say, what does it take to make you feel good? And understand that you're just talking to that best friend, your husband, your loved one, and talking and just having a conversation. Remember, we're only talking to one person. We're not talking to the world. And when you focus on one person, it's so much easier to talk to. Because let me tell you, there have been times like 100 live episodes, I pretended to enjoy being on camera because I hated seeing myself. And when someone asked me a question of what was the most biggest challenge I had or obstacle that I wanted to overcome, it was seeing my worth, my value. And it took me a very long time to get past that. And if I could share that with any of you, is that you have value. You are beautiful. You are handsome. We're not, as we get older, we have more gray hair. Things happen. But what your stories, your wisdom, your best friends, they always come back to you because you have what they're looking for, the answers, the comfort. And that's what's going to happen when you start getting on camera, you start sharing, and when you start to think about the positives, you forget about the negatives and you just keep showing. You keep showing up. I used to do 21-day video challenges, and everybody who started on day 1 and then on day 21, they were like, "I cannot believe how much transformation has happened because of the growth." I had one person who would struggle so much. I still see her face, and now she's a rock star on video. But it took that point of understanding what she loved about herself and then coming out and showing the world that now she's like, "Oh my god, I can't even see myself not doing video."
Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, I think a lot of us are struggling with exactly that. So I think it's just putting yourself out there no matter what and practice, 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 and evolving over time. And as we are evolving, also social media and video marketing is evolving. So what are the current trends what do you do to stay ahead of the curve so that you can consistently deliver fresh and engaging content to your clients?
What's
So
really
what that is
crazy,
current right now. Yeah, what is crazy?
I watch a lot of TikTok and Instagram's
Mhm,
videos because while many of us may have our views, you can also be on these other platforms as an anonymous person. You could even create an account that would be you could be pretending whoever this persona of person that you are trying to attract.
mhm,
You can create a fake email account. You can even get register for emails to this person, whatever that they would be looking for, and then you can check out Instagram and just see what are people posting, how are they coming up and showing up, what are they doing on TikTok, because a lot of times those trends then they trickle down to the different platforms. So it's just seeing like what are people doing, what are they not doing. You don't have to follow a trend. Remember, people want to connect with you, they want to understand how is your process to help them make money, like we're selfish, and understand the verbiage that they use. Why did you get attracted to this video? What are they saying? Maybe it's something funny, like there's a cat doing something crazy, but or maybe it's this kid who's talking about a life lesson or an adult talking about a life lesson, and you're like, oh my God, they're talking to me.
mhm.
What did they do? What did they say? How did they captivate your mind to stay longer? Look at how the editing is. Maybe they're just sitting in one place, but they have different camera angles. So it feels like they're talking to you, but they're really just showing maybe one shot to the right, one shot to the left, one shot in the middle. And it feels like, oh, I like that. It's simple, but it's nice. Also, listen to the sound of music are they using? Look at what are they hashtags they're using. These are all ways that you can get from other creators that you can bring into your content because you'll start to notice a pattern. I'm seeing in 2024, longer videos are what people want to look. TikTok is promoting that, even YouTube shorts. We're seeing longer videos back on LinkedIn. Understand that if you want this video to be an ad, you need to shorten it down. You also want to look at people have been burned. So, what can you create that causes people to feel a trust? But also remember what you say in your video content. And if the customer experience is totally different, meaning like, okay, you are saying, I talk to my clients, they have a great experience. But then when you sign up to work with them, you don't email, you don't contact them, there's no follow up. That's a lie. That's when the distrust starts to happen and they'll start to not tell people about your business.
Mm,
So you want to be real careful. Be honest. I always tell people, I'm very blessed. I have a team. They help me write my content. They do my designs. I do my own video editing, but if I wanted to ask my video editor, they would edit my videos. So I know there are people out there who say, I do it all, but really they don't.
mhm.
So just be honest in your
Yeah.
videos. So that's trend. Those are things that more and more creators are talking about. And I would say don't always jump on trends. You will see a lot of it, but not all trends are for you. You could take a trend and you could say, from your perspective, why this trend may not work for you. Or you can add a little bit of that element, but then put a spice of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, as you say, I mean, there are so many trends out there. Jumping on all the trends is like being everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And as you say, we have to customize. We have to see whether that resonates with us and goes along with our brand identity. And there is one more thing I think that is also becoming part of our journey when it comes to video is artificial intelligence. So, what do you think about AI and how this? It's not even an emerging trend, it's already a trend that has been on the market for months or maybe a year or even longer. So, how do we integrate AI into our branding strategies when it comes to social media and video in a healthy way?
So I use AI. I don't want people to think that I don't. I just always don't promote it.
Mm,
But I will say AI helps you do research. It helps you to sometimes when you're trying to come up with the script, if you know what you want, it helps you do that. But I would say don't use it word for word. Definitely put your wording in there, adjust it to you, use the ideas, and do research. Like, there's so many really good articles out there that you could take and put it into your video, into your content. I know AI helps that. Longer form videos, it helps to, be able to cut that video, that long hour workshop or 2-hour workshop into small bits, but also go back and put your branding. I remember I was working with one of my clients and they had a social media manager for their Facebook and Instagram, and they were just slapping on captions because what they were using is an AI tool. But I was like, no, you have to understand their captions is part of their brand. And so I would use the colors that they have for their brand and even we all have a certain type of font that we use for our branding. So you want to use that in your videos because I love that there's all of these easy ways to do things, but there's also element to add your piece of branding. CapCut allows you to do that.
mm.
And then there's also obviously if you use DaVinci, Adobe Premiere, you can do that. So use your AI tools, but go back and add your elements of you because at the end of the day, you are a brand all the way from a static post, a video, a live streaming show, podcast. It's all one brand and it's also part of the funnel. Like this is top. I want to say everybody says there's top level, mid level. These are all ways to get into to work with you. So if something's off, it's going to throw distrust. People can't identify. They don't know what it is because it's at a subconscious level. This is, like, gonna get a little crazy for a little bit, but subconsciously, we cannot describe why something doesn't fit to us. And if you don't understand branding, not digital marketing, but being a creator, there's some reason why you didn't buy that product. The person on the other end might be telling you through their teeth that they can help you, but subconsciously they might be like, I don't know if I can help this. And you as the viewer are watching this and you're like, I don't know why I don't trust them. They're saying all the right things, but there's something that I can't connect with. Same thing with your videos. They feel that, but they just don't understand why. We want to eliminate that. We want them to want to work with us. And that's what I say with AI. They cannot build that trust. You have to go back and just do a little bit of work, but I don't discount not using AI. Like, use it. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful tool.
Yeah, I think on top of that, that makes the brand equity. It's the human characteristic that blends into all of it. It's, the extra mile that you go bringing in your brand identity, what you are, and how you present yourself to the world. It's the human touch. It's the uniqueness that you bring to the table that connects with your audience. I think that's the element that makes you unique and that differentiates you from the rest.
Yes, it definitely does. And I will say there's a lot of my posts, I didn't use AI. I actually I just looked at what other people were doing. I had AI help me like a little bit, but really the start and finish of it was all I wrote it and it kind of corrected a few things. And that's where we want to go back to. Like we
Exactly.
have AI, but we also want to put us.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before coming to the end of our show, I would like to do a quick word wrap with you. Sri, are you ready to give me short answers? Storytelling.
Exciting.
Okay. Video.
Marketing,
Entrepreneurship.
hard lessons.
Yeah. AI.
My best friend,
Okay. And brains.
lifelong.
I like that. Wonderful. Sri, where can listeners find you and get in touch with you?
You can find me on any social media platform: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, which is now X. YouTube. I have a podcast. So the live streaming show is called Journey of an Entrepreneur. But when I download it and convert it, it's Adventure of an Entrepreneur. And you can find me on any platform that you listen to your podcast. Also, if you like to watch your podcast, I will be uploading the video onto Spotify, but you can also watch on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and X.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sri, thank you for being my guest today on Brands Talk. I really appreciate you and all of the tips and tricks and everything that you shared with us today of how to future-proof our brand. I thank you so much for doing so. It was great having you today. Thank you, Sri.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.